Welcome back on in, everybody, to another episode of the StricklyNFL podcast. Here again with my co-host Desmond. Joining us today are two pretty freaking guests on the podcast. You know them from Pod Strickland, Shwin and Stacy Patton. Your boys, two of the mainstays here at the Strickland, of course. So first of all, I have to address the elephant in the room. How is Stacy feeling after Monday Night Football?
It was Nick Foles' coronation too, man. That was
very sad.
I'm not in panic mode. It sucks we have to play the Saints now because they're on fire, and our defense is not in good shape. I'm actually really by what Derek Carr has been doing in lower usage, but it's just the biggest thing is it's just shocking to see how bad the pass rush has been. Especially compared to it'd be like watching the Knicks and just the offensive rebounding is non-existent, right? Because I'm just not used to that. The pass rush is the strength. Huff just hasn't given what they wanted as a replacement for Reddick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for those who are not watching on YouTube, Stacy put a gun to his head, so that's how he was feeling. Before we go any further into this podcast, I just want to remind everybody that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, matchup, and live odds and spreads to bet on during all the games. If you think you know your stuff, you can get on their $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of that $200,000. When the game's over, you can head over to their online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or in over 150 slot games. Head over to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online, the game starts here. So, getting into some more of that Monday Night Football conversation, my biggest takeaways was Jalen Carter kind of didn't do as much as I would have thought for a guy who's I think is on a fast track of being a superstar in this league. So, do you guys think I'm pretty sure we all had our eyes in the trenches, right? You know, that's where real football's played.
So I only watch the guards. I'm like, that's all I'm
exactly.
watching.
That's how I am, but with basketball. But I'm ball don't stop.
No, So I think watching this, like, it's not just one thing for the Eagles right now that I think is fucking them up. It's so like you talked about Jalen Carter. Like when I watching that game, just like as I'm watching it, he made a couple like splash plays and whatever, and he was okay. He was okay, but you don't draft that guy, top 10, and you're like, I mean, think about when he got drafted, because everybody's like, how the hell, how could the league let this guy go to the Eagles? Howie Roseman has done it again, so you have to think of him as a prospect that was expected to come in and have like immediate, real like star level impact potentially. And so, like, I don't think he played a bad game, but he was not a star. Like, I don't think Jordan Davis had a bad game, but he was not a star. And I think so you have like your two most talented, defensive line players right there, and they're not playing horribly, but they're not. They're not
Michigan grad turning on Brandon Graham. Come on, man.
Brandon Graham is like 98 years old. Fine.
He probably is our best pass rusher.
Yeah, but these guys are not playing at star level. And to your point about Brandon Graham, like, yeah, he's still like a pretty good player, but he's not the Brandon Graham of his prime. So like, and he shouldn't be, right? He's played a long career. He's not expected to be that guy anymore. The guys who are expected to be are not delivering that. And so on top of that, now that your defensive tackles that you were expecting stud performances from or projecting that, when they're not playing at that level, it exposes a lot of other issues. Like, I like Nakobe Dean. I think he makes some really good plays. I also think he's a linebacker who you need to keep clean plays, because he's not a big guy. He's not going to just shed tack like blockers and stuff like that. So it's a cumulative thing where it's like, because Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter aren't occupying defenders and getting penetration the way that you are probably built your defense in a lot of ways expecting to do, it exposes other areas. Like the Eagles linebackers are just, I mean, they're okay, I guess, but like, it's just hard when other pieces of the line or other pieces of the team are not living up to expectations. And then, like, look, you just got to talk about it. And, I'm sure the Jets fans listening to this will love to take this victory lap, considering all the shit they've caught for Hassan Reddick not being there. But, like, Bryce Huff. I mean, what is that?
He's not winning one-on-one matchups with tight ends. It's
that
bad.
was that rep. I think it was Shane Half who tweeted it out, but it was a rep.
Great
where he's
follow,
like,
by the way. And he does a lot of non-Eagle stuff too. For Giants.
He had a rep where he's just like, it's not even a joke. This is like a 5 or 6 second rep where he's one-on-one against a tight end, and he's just like doing nothing. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, this is a guy you paid what? I think $51 million or whatever it was, $17 million a year, and he's giving you nothing. He's supposed to replace Hassan Reddick, right? And to be fair to like Howie Roseman making that decision, all the pods I listened to over the summer were like, this is actually great for the Eagles. They got a pick back for Reddick, and then they maybe got a better pure pass rusher in Bryce Huff. And now you look at that investment, and it's just like, what is going on here? This guy, I mean, he doesn't look like an NFL player. He really does not look like an NFL player right now.
The Eagles have gotten really small on the edge really fast. Between Bryce Huff, I think Jalix Hunt is I think Jalix Hunt had a pretty good size actually. I think he was like 6'3", 240 or something like that. But Nolan Smith is very slender, and then Josh Sweat is a lot bigger than both of them. But is he really like? You could probably say a little bit better.
It's a true
edge.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, it's Sweat. I mean, it's a Fangio style defense, right? They've been trying to. Sorry, is it Fangio or Fangio?
Fangio.
Yeah. It's the defense they've been trying to run for many years, and they finally just said they had all of these disciples, right? Sean Desai, Guju Pride right here still, is is a Fangio guy. That's what they've been trying to run. And it's tough to, I mean, look, to Shwin's point, Huff should still be beating a tight end one-on-one. In obvious, the last drive where the Hawks, wow, the Falcons took the lead. They had to pass every time, right? This is where you don't, because I think most of the game you could say, well, look, Huff is not a good run defender, and maybe trying to take on more responsibilities in run defense instead of being able to pin his ears back has created problems, right? On the Jets, I think he was more deployed in situations where he could just get downhill and attack if he's being asked to do more. But even that was what was eye-opening, is that on that last drive, they got no pressure. And there were obvious passing situations on every play. Not only did they give up a score, they gave up a touchdown, right? So to answer your question, I think it's transforming to that Fangio style, and their run defense has taken a hit. I actually think the linebackers are a lot better than last year. I do think we'll see more Devin White going forward as he gets healthy. I have liked what I've seen from Zach Bond. I actually think like their linebackers last year were a disaster. I don't think
Bond looks really good. He looks really good.
I was going to say he's a really good tackler.
And I like Nakobe Dean and I like Devin White. So I think they're well positioned. I think the pieces are there. But the line is problematic. And to your point, I think if you're going to go light on the edges, you do need Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter to play like stars, right? They can't, and they're young guys. They're still developing. Jalen Carter is still in his second year. The other thing, I thought he was much better week one. Yesterday, he was sidelined for a team infraction in the beginning of the game. I don't know if that threw out his concentration or whatever, if that had an impact. But they're going to this Fangio style defense, which is lighter on the edge, putting more responsibilities on the middle of the defense and the linebackers, and you got to be sound there. And the other thing is they have addressed this in the draft, but it's tough to make it a one season fix. They are getting long in the tooth in the secondary, right? With Slay particularly, and that was exposed on the last drive. I actually did appreciate his tweet, although I definitely understand Giants fans want to clown him for it. But I did want to also talk. I'll have to take this one, and I do want to get your thoughts, especially Kon. Saquon, was that kind of some feeling of redemption there with that drop was huge, and people are blaming Hurts. I thought Hurts played a good game, but
Is that the biggest? Is that the highlight of the Giants season so far?
Shit, man.
It's like the first Brian Burns sack will beat that, but like until then, it's like it's.
Wait, Des, you're a Carolina fan? It looks like.
No, Giants fan.
No, I'm saying you have a North Carolina shirt, so are you a UNC fan?
Oh no, I got this in North Carolina. No, college-wise, West Virginia.
Oh, okay. Take me home country roads.
Damn right.
Well, I was gonna say because like that's got to be doubly painful as a Giants fan if you're a UNC fan. They draft the Duke guy, and then no offense, he's not very good, but
he fucking sucks.
Yeah, with the Saquon thing, I would say that's like the highlight of our season, but that's a highlight that I've seen a lot of times already. You know, that drop into the flat route out of the backfield. Like the only time I remember him really coming through on that route is week 2 against Arizona last year, where he dove for the pylon. And besides that, when he's turning around to make a catch, he's always had inconsistent hands.
Yeah, I think I saw a post, I'm not sure from who, but it said that he had like the most drop passes out of a running back in the last like 5 or 6 years. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
I think he has 16. I think it was 16 drops.
Yeah, it's kind of the trade-off because I think that is a big part of his value. It's why the Eagles paid they do not pay premiums for any running back, right? Go back 20 years. Brian Westbrook was a 3rd-round pick. They were willing to let him walk eventually, right? Miles Sanders, 2nd-round pick. McCoy, 2nd-round pick. All these guys got traded. McCoy's like the one star player I think that's played for both mine and Shwin's teams.
He was awesome in Buffalo. I thought that was a stupid trade for you guys because you guys got what Kiko Alonso.
I liked Kiko. Is it Kiko Alonso? It's Kiki, I think, right? I was more upset about losing Deshaun Jackson, but I've been a running back truther for a long time. But anyway, the point is, they invested that because you want to use him, and we saw in week 1, right, that wheel route against the Packers. Like people talked about the 3 touchdowns and all that. He is a talented runner, right? He can cut and all of those things. It's something the Eagles have been missing. But what really excited me was that wheel route that he got a touchdown on, and you saw there's drawbacks to that, right? He is not a completely natural. He's not a guy like if McCaffrey played slot receiver full time, he'd still be a star. I don't think that's a hot take. No. Saquon would probably not be in the league if that was his only role. Which is fine, but there are kind of, and you can also say on that play that Hurts was probably a beat late on that throw, which can add to things. But definitely, I mean, I've thought the whole time that I said this before. I would say it's a little bit like the RJ Barrett stuff, right? Where he's going to another team, he's playing well, but he's also in kind of optimal conditions. I think that'll continue. I think Saquon's going to put up numbers. I don't think he would have done the same in the Giants scheme, and I ultimately don't think it's as impactful as the numbers, the like raw stats, like rushing and receiving yards will say. But I do think like given the number of threats they had, and that's why I wasn't worried about AJ being out. Maybe I should have been, because they have so many guys you can't cover one-on-one. You can't cover Saquon one-on-one. There are obvious, to our conversation, drawbacks. You can't cover Devontae slot or outside. You can't really cover Devontae outside one-on-one if you're making the right reads, and you can't cover Goddard one-on-one. I will say on that last interception, I think it was Shane Huff again who brought this up, but Devontae got played with outside leverage. Hurts could have thrown it away, or he could have they could have run a dig for Devontae, or you can trust Covey, I guess, to make his catch, right? They don't have faith in that next receiver, which is crazy to think that that's a thing when you have so many weapons, but that is a thing, and it showed up on that last interception.
With the point of having so many weapons and having to rely on Covey still, I think dating back to last year, they kind of solved this mystery in the last couple of weeks, but Goddard just hasn't been the same since Steichen left. And I'm not speaking as a player. I'm speaking as the way he is utilized and deployed within the scheme. Like, I feel like there's so much low hanging fruit nowadays to get the ball in the hands of a tight end if you know how to call plays. We saw that in Dable's first year in New York, just to kind of like throw out an anecdote. He was getting legitimate play out of, remind me, Desmond, Chris Myrick, Lawrence Cage.
Yeah, Chris Myrick, Cager,
Belly was also in his rookie
Belly,
season.
yeah.
So it's like, the Giants made bank off of just that play action boot with the tight end running a route into the flat and then having somebody run kind of a levels concept with the tight end and making the defense choose. So, Sirianni's was a play call in Indianapolis. I forgot who was elevated to take over that spot that Steichen left behind. But it's little things like that where, like, you should always be trying to learn. You should always be trying to implement stuff into your system if it's going to help a player that you have. And they just haven't found the right recipe to get Goddard kind of meshed in well with this new scheme.
Well, I do think I mean they have Kellen Moore. I'll just say that's Kellen Moore. So I am enthusiastic about that hire, but I do think they've been trying to focus Devontae and Saquon a lot more. Sorry, go ahead, Shwin, though.
No, that's I wonder. I just think the focus of their offense is not on Goddard, and that's fine. Like, you have to kind of make trade-offs at times because you have a lot of talent. So it's like, yeah, maybe the bet you're making in a lot of ways is like, even if we're not maximizing Goddard, we're going to get so much more out of Devontae and Saquon and AJ when he's healthy that overall level of production will be better than if we're trying to prioritize Goddard at the expense of one of those guys. I also just wonder, like, so much of what Goddard can give you is about what he can bring to, like, owning the middle of the field. And when you're watching, like, the amount of teams now where they're playing too high shells, whether they show it pre-snap, post-snap, whatever, you need, like, your zone coverage beaters. They're so fucking vital now. But Hurts doesn't really like throwing into the middle of the field. Sure, it's not his most comfortable area. Like, I don't know. Like, is that really about, Goddard not being kind of prioritized or used properly? Or is it just like, I do think with Steichen, I'm not going to say he was a control freak, but I think he was there was a lot of, their offense was super efficient, and it always looked like there was a plan.
It was regimented.
Plan. Yeah, it was very regimented. So
structured. Yeah.
I think it maybe covered up some of the issues Hurts has in terms of he's not going to be great attacking the middle of the field when you give him more freedom. And I think he still has more freedom. This is a big thing that was talked about in that offseason, in that article about the offseason that dropped on ESPN.com before the season started, where him and Sirianni were in seeing eye to eye and blah, blah, blah. And Hurts wanted more control of the offense. I think this culminated in some pick he threw in a game last year where him and AJ just decided, like, fuck the play. We're just going to do our own thing. So when the quarterback wants more freedom to do what he wants to do, other guys, they could feel that. And I don't watch the Eagles close enough to say that, but it would not surprise me if some of this stuff is just like Hurts doesn't like throwing in the middle of the field that much, and he's just not going to. And
he's an undersized QB, and
like we don't throw running back screens because Josh is not good at throwing. Like, the Bills don't do it. They very, very rarely do it because he's not good at throwing running back screens. So we're probably the fucking worst running back screen team in, like, the last 5 years. But like
the most insane thing to, like, not be good at.
Yeah, well, it's I think it's because his arm is just too fucking ridiculous. But like, yeah, so it's just like, so you have, this exists for all types of quarterbacks. Like, it's like why Yak, yes, it is so much about the wide receiver, but that's still like a quarterback stat to a degree. Like,
yeah,
like there are people that like make these stupid memes of like Mahomes, right? Where it's like, oh, well, if you take out the Yak yards, look at what Mahomes is really throwing for.
Well, that was what the Patriots built their offense on.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean Brady wasn't good, right?
Well, it's like, yeah, well, like, it's actually a skill to hit guys in stride so they can get a bunch of yak. So there's trade-offs with every quarterback, no matter how good or bad they are. And I just think Goddard might be kind of like the guy who doesn't quite mesh. His skill set isn't going to be optimized playing with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I definitely think with the middle of the field thing, it's probably related to his size. He has struggled against the blitz throughout his career. He's also just a quarterback where, like, if you think about, like, does he have an elite quality? I think he's probably the strongest quarterback overall. Him and Allen could probably get in a lifting contest, and that'd be interesting to see squats and deadlifts and all that.
And Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think he can outlift Hurts, but Richardson deserves mention.
I mean, you talk about it. I unironically was like, he made some fucking run in the beginning of the game, and I was like, is he moving? And like, why does he look like he's moving in slow motion? I don't know what the hell happened, but like at some point in that game, he was like, nope, I'm fast again.
Yeah.
So that was cool to see.
I think they have coached him after that, after the injuries, to be a little bit more risk averse. So I think he's probably going to be more tentative on a lot of those runs. But his speed isn't great. He is not Lamar Jackson as a runner. I think his accuracy is as like one of his biggest strengths as a quarterback, especially on deep balls. I think he throws one of the best deep balls in the league. Probably not the best, but up there, right? And then as a processor, like, these are the things that get criticized. He'll take risks that he shouldn't take. He makes reads he shouldn't take. But he's not bad, but he's not great, right? So I think he is. We were talking about this yesterday. I do not think he is worse than Brock Purdy. I think that's kind of something I disagree with you guys on. But I think, like, the way Brock Purdy's talked about is probably how Hurts is. Like, a quarterback you can definitely win with, which is a fine line. Like, there are good quarterbacks you can't probably win a Super Bowl with. And he was a better quarterback than the guy he went up against in week 2. But you do have to tailor those things. And, I think that, to me, he's in the 5 to 10 range. And it probably does have some, but you have a 6'2" quarterback. There's always going to be some shortcomings. There's some things you have to cover up for. I didn't follow the Saints as closely, but I'm sure there's things that Peyton had to account for with Drew Brees. You see it with Russell Wilson. He has not aged well, despite in his prime being one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL conservatively. It is tougher with shorter quarterbacks, and you can have some of these kind of effects.
Yeah, when you bring up like the top 5, top 10 discussion, I think this would be a good debate to have right here on like the Stafford versus Hurts thing. Because I know, I think it was Shwin who agreed with me that Stafford is probably a little bit like, if I have to win a game today, I think I take Stafford by a hair over Hurts. It's also obviously relying on team context and things like that as well.
I would take Stafford with their offensive line for sure. One, because they can actually keep him clean, and with their weapons, and like he's like, thing is, the guy has always had, like, I mean, his natural talent is ridiculous in terms of throwing the ball.
Definitely has a stronger arm than Hurts.
Yeah, and I just think he can make every throw. Like, he can make every throw to every level. He's obviously one of the most creative passers. Like, I think he's obviously got way more experience on Hurts because he's played forever. So like, yeah, I would take Stafford, and like, my honest opinion is that I think you have Mahomes, you have Allen, and then I think from like 3 to 10 or whatever, it's really fluid. Like, I don't think there's a consistent answer. And like, to give Hurts the benefit of the doubt, like, say whatever you want about him. Like, I mean, are we even really having like a huge Hurts discussion if Saquon catches the fucking ball? Like, probably not. And
I think it's more week 1 for me. He was not week 1. Yeah.
No, he definitely wasn't. But like, it's also like week 1 is the biggest liar, right? It's like the weirdest week of the NFL season other than week 17. So I just kind of like look at it. I'm like, what is Hurts' true level? Like, there's all these guys in that mix, and it's 2 games in the season. Like, let it play out. I think we have enough of a sample with Hurts, though, where it's like, okay, when the ecosystem around him is functional, he's a guy that you can win with. And wherever you rank like guys after that, I wouldn't put him at 3. I don't know if I'd put him at like 4, 5, 6. I don't know. I haven't sat down and done a ranking, but like I don't think it would be absurd for someone to be like, I think Hurts at his best is like the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL. Like I don't think that's crazy, but I don't personally feel that way. But I don't think it's like some crazy fucking opinion. Like Lamar Jackson winning MVP last year.
Had to throw that in there. I am with Shwin. I am definitely. I do think Lamar Jackson is the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL, which a lot of people don't agree with. But I also think he is 3rd and not 2nd. I think Josh Allen gets a lot of bad hate. I like trolling Shwin. On Hurts, I think it's he's got a specific. I mean, I talked about this. He's got a specific skill set. I do think like he played. I do think he was deserving of the MVP mentions he was getting. A lot of people mention like, look at how great his offensive line and in terms of advanced stats, how they're performing. But I think a lot of that was helped by his running ability. That's probably why I would take him over Stafford, is because even when he's a little bit more risk averse or slower, whatever you want to call it, that threat exists, right? And even when he's not beating you to the edge on a 3rd and short, he is a load to bring down. I think his accuracy is actually the thing that gets talked about the least, but he is very good on deep balls. AJ's production has increased. Devontae has thrived despite being 160 pounds. Hurts deserves a lot of credit for that. I do generally agree, though, 3 to 10 is tough. I mean, you look at the guys in this conversation, there's so many young guys who are a little bit inconsistent. I think Jordan Love is awesome, but he's had ups and downs. I think CJ Stroud, CJ Stroud, maybe it's talked about completely differently if he didn't run into the greatest college football program in the country that shut him down twice in a row. And
but he was sick the first time, so
they stole the signs.
He had a cold. He had a cold.
It was snowing.
Yeah,
it never snows in Ohio.
I actually had somebody in real life tell me because he's an OSU fan, and I'd said last year I was like, Michigan is gonna wipe the floor with you guys again. Like their roster is amazing. So I saw him yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, did Michigan not have the signs this past weekend?" And I was like, first of all, I'm not even a Michigan fan. Second of all, look at the guys they've sent to the NFL and fucking listen to yourself again.
Including a guy who's 2-0 right now.
Well, it's
with the defensive coordinator who's allowed 6.5 points per game. Sorry, go ahead, Shwin.
Yeah, the impressive thing is that Harbaugh and Mike McDonald are winning games without Connor Stallions stealing signs for them in the NFL. That's impressive.
It is insane that he got a documentary. Sorry, we can move on.
Yeah, it was also a terrible documentary. The Stroud thing, like,
I do think Stroud is good. Like, he's gonna be a top.
He's good. He's fine. He's gonna be really good. He's gonna be a franchise quarterback. Can we pump the fucking brakes a little bit? Like, I was listening to the
he's my fantasy quarterback. Shwin.
I was listening to the Athletic NFL pod today, and they were talking about they're talking about the Bears and Texans game, and like Mays is like he's a Bears guy, so he's like I didn't really love what I saw from Caleb in the second half, blah 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 blah. And then they're both just like, oh my God, Stroud, he had like 5 or 6 throws, and I'm just like, they scored 19 points. Like, what are we talking about? Like, just calm down. Like, it's fine. Like, he can. Not every game needs to, validate your idea that he's a superstar already. Like, it's kind of crazy. I don't know. I think Stroud's really good.
Losing Tank has hurt them. I think that's.
But that's kind of the point, right? It's like. People act like Stroud went into this team last year and single-handedly like uplifted them to what they did, and it's like Nico Collins is like what, a top 3-5 receiver in the NFL.
Biggest waste of Michigan. Yeah, fucking Shea Patterson, bro. We could have won it all.
He's awesome. I think Tank Dell is really good. You look at like who's their tight end? Dalton Schultz is like a good tight end. It's a good player. And then like I think Slowick is from what I've seen of him, especially now that they got their offensive line back, you're seeing this guy can really like call like mix like he can mix it up, right? He can run it, he's going to mix in the pass. Like he seems like a very put together offensive coordinator. And then obviously DeMeco Ryans, what he's been able to do with their defense, like this is not like he went to some talentless, bottom feeder. Like
rudderless.
They have shout out Woj. But like they have talent, and Stroud himself is part of that, obviously, but he also benefits from playing with a lot of good players that they've assembled in a very short period of time. Actually, Nick Caserio has done a really great job there. But like, yeah,
like John Mechie was on the roster bubble.
Yeah,
and he like is probably a good NFL player.
Yeah, so it's they have a lot of talent, and I don't know. Like I just think the quarterback stuff in general is like I think that conversation is very interesting and weird to have, where it's like, it's like remember a couple years ago, it was like Justin Herbert, he's the next one up, he's about to take the throne or whatever.